All right, hey guys, in this video, we're going to deal with the subject of setting goals that are based on our excess cash flow that we've identified. If you haven't seen the cash budget video that is in the channel, make sure that you check that one out. That's the tool that is forward-looking, and it's used to identify whether we have a cash shortfall or a cash surplus. If you have a cash surplus, the choices, the options that you have are to either use it for debt reduction, and check out the other videos on debt reduction strategies if debt reduction is one of your goals. Or if you're not focused on debt reduction, let's say because you're out of debt or you don't want to make it the focus, then you can start targeting other goals. And so this video is really all about goal setting. And we're going to start talking a little bit about the 5 different factors that are involved in setting goals and reaching those goals, and how to determine what payment is necessary to reach those goals. Alternatively, we could figure out, based on a certain amount of money, when you would be able to accomplish that goal. So we'll cover those topics in this video. Let's get started. I'll share my screen, and we'll pick up where we left off with the cash budget. All right, so on the screen here, you're going to see the final product of the cash budgeting video. And really what I want to do is I want to draw your attention to one specific aspect of this, and that is the surplus. So I'm just going to make an adjustment here. And I'm going to pull this over here because we're not going to assume that debt reduction is our goal here. What we're interested in is this $400. Okay, so I might as well highlight this, highlight it. Because as you can see, we have our total cash inflows minus our total cash outflows, and we've identified this $400. So the question is, what do we do with that? And we can do whatever we want with it, but remember, the purpose of the cash budget is to identify this, right? And to identify areas or opportunities where you can make improvements, whether that's cutting out the dining out, maybe reducing your grocery bill a little bit, looking at some of those flexible expense items, or increasing your income by taking on gigs or whatever the case may be. In any case, $400, that's what we have to work with. So what we can do is we can set up this goal tab. And what I want to do first is I just want to type in available funds per month. Okay. And we can take this value from our cash budget, which was identified here. Okay, so this is our starting point. I'm going to put this in, let's say, accounting, and we're going to remove some of those decimal places. So $400 is available. So what we have here are 3 different goals. Now, you would list whatever goals it is that you have right here along this first column. And we want to attach some goals to these. Now, retirement planning, how to calculate what the future amount is, that's a whole other, not just video, but set of videos. Retirement planning is a big topic in the field of personal finance. But we're just going to set a number here just so that you can see sort of how this works. So let's say that the retirement goal that we have is $250,000. Okay, and I'm going to make all of these numbers, with the exception of time. So these ones and interest rate, this one and this one, these are all money. So I'm going to change the formatting to accounting, and again, remove the decimal places. Okay, so that's goal number 1. 250,000. The next goal that we have is our house down payment. And let's say that we want to save a down payment on a, let's just say $600,000 home. Okay. So The down payment that you're going to need, as a rule of thumb, is a minimum is 5%, but you're also going to have to set aside money for closing costs and other fees, legal fees, etc. So let's say 6.5%. So 6.5% can be represented as 0.065. And we want to multiply that by the value of the home, which is 600,000. Okay. So we need, as a goal, $39,000. Lastly, an emergency fund. And again, the emergency fund description, how to come about that. It is a result of budgeting in a way, because you want to identify those things, those costs, that those expenses that are still there that you're still going to need to fund in the event of job loss or whatever the case is. So for here, we're going to just set the emergency fund as an estimate of 3 to 6 months. So we'll take the midpoint of that, which is 4.5 months, okay, times the average expenses. Now, in that cash budget that we did, if we go back here, we see that our total cash outflows is 6,400. Okay. As a rule of thumb, for purposes of this video, we'll just take that amount and we'll multiply it by 0.80. Okay. So 80% of this. What would happen is if you did experience job loss or whatever the case is, there would be ways that you could cut back. You could go down to 1 car. If you had 2 cars, you could eat out less. You could, anyway, cut back on a lot of things. Probably childcare would drop, etc. You get the idea, okay? So that means that for our emergency fund, we have a goal of $23,040. All right, the next big piece is the number of periods that we have until we want to reach this goal. So how long is it going to take to get to $250,000 is the question. Well, that depends on when you want to retire and what your current age is. So if we assume here that it's a 30-year-old and they want to retire by 65, then that means that we have 35 years. We're going to have to put an equal sign because we're going to do some math. 35 years, but we're trying to calculate this on a monthly basis, okay? So 35 years times 12, that gives us 420 months in order to accomplish this goal, okay? A long time period. For the house down payment, we may want something that's a little bit sooner than 35 years. And that's why I've put that this is a medium-term goal. Let's say that the goal is 5 years. So we're going to take 5 years times 12 months per year, and that's going to give us 60. And then let's say that for the emergency fund, we really would like to have that established in 2 years. So 2 times 12, it's 24 months. Okay. Now, the interest rate is going to be a function of time, liquidity requirements, so whether you need access to the money or not. It's going to be a function of your risk tolerance. And when you sit down with a financial advisor, they would go through all of these things with you. For retirement, we're just going to set some reasonable rates of return here for the time period of these investments. So we're going to say that in the first case, if we had a 60-40 portfolio, we may look at, say, 6% as the rate of return, but that is on an annual basis. And so we want this to be in monthly terms. Okay, so that gives us 0.005. For a medium-term 5-year goal, we really shouldn't be investing in equities. Maybe in that first year, you would invest in equities, but beyond that, if you go through a down period where the market falls, you may not recover to be able to reach your goal in time. So basically, as a rule of thumb, if the goal is 5 years or less, stick with sort of fixed income products, bonds, savings accounts, GICs, or certificates of deposit in the US. And that's going to command a lower rate of return, okay? So let's say that in the first case we have 6. Let's just assume that in the second case we have 4%. So equals 4% divided by 12. And for the emergency fund, let's say that we're not in markets, we're not in bond markets, we're just getting a small interest rate in our savings account. Maybe we're able to get 2%, maybe, okay? And divided by 12. Okay. Next, we want to establish whether we have any current savings already for this particular goal. Okay. And in the case of the retirement, let's say that we have already chipped away and we've already got 20,000. Okay. For the house down payment, let's say that there's 5 years, maybe we've already saved, $200 a month for 1 year. So we're going to have 2,400 saved toward that goal. And then for the emergency fund, let's say that we've been doing like $100 a month for a year. So we've got $1,200. So 100 times 12. Okay, and I guess I should put equals 200 times 12 here. Okay. Now, this is where you get into one of the powerful equations that are embedded within Excel. And that equation is the PMT equation. You can see that this column is named contribution. I've put PMT in the brackets there. PMT represents payment. And the reason I've done that is because if we click equals PMT and then open bracket, you'll see that there's a number of factors that determine what the payment is going to be. So the first factor here is rate. And luckily, we have the rate right here, so we can just click this cell and then hit comma. Next, we need the number of periods. We click this cell, hit comma. Next, we hit PV, so present value. This is the current savings. Hit comma. FV is the future value or the goal. Hit comma. And type relates to, are we starting the savings at the beginning of the period or at the end of the period? And we're going to say at the end of the period because, you go through the month, you have all of your different expenses, you have a certain amount that's remaining, that $400, and then you make that contribution. So 0. Now, one thing that is very, very important with relation to this PMT, you have to determine what are cash outflows and what are cash inflows, because cash outflows are always treated as a negative and cash inflows always as a positive. If you currently have $20,000 as your current savings, that has been a cash outflow, okay? And your future value, the $250,000 at the end of the period, is going to be a cash inflow. So the present value amount, okay, which is E5 right here, we have to make that one negative. Okay, if you don't, then it's not going to work properly. So when we press enter, we're going to see here that 61 is the value. 61. So what does that mean? It means that we need to contribute $61 per month for 420 months at a rate of 6% per year, or 0.005 per month. And if we have 20,000 already, then we're going to get 250,000 in the end. Okay. Moving on to the next goal. Same thing, PMT. We have our rate here, our NPER here, our PV, which we're going to make negative here. Our future value is 39,000. And again, at the end of the period, 0. And we have $544. Okay. Lastly, PMT, rate, number of periods, minus the present value, the future value, 0, and 891. Okay, so if we hit equals sum, or again, we can just click the summation button, which is going to sum all of them. Then in order for us to accomplish all of these different goals, we would need to have available funds per month of 1,496. So do we have available funds of 1,496 per month? No. And oftentimes it's going to be the case that you will not have the funds that are available when you go through this exercise. So what can be done? Well, now that we have everything set up, we can change different levers here, okay? So the first thing that we could change is the amount, okay? Maybe instead of a $250,000 goal for retirement, we're going to want to have a 200,000. Now, as we anticipate, this 61 is going to go down, okay? So let's just make sure. And it does. It goes to 26, and that reduces this 1,461, okay? Now, because of the number of periods, we can make adjustments to retirement, but it's not going to make a huge difference. Where's the big difference? It's going to be here for the emergency funds. And why is that? Well, it's because we only have a short amount of time here, 24 months, and we have a low interest rate to be able to accomplish that goal. So let's say that we decide, okay, we're not going to get there in 24 months. Let's increase the amount of time to 36 months. So 3 years, we want to have this emergency fund. If we hit 36, notice what happens. Okay, we started at 24. It was 891. 36 goes down to 587. Okay. So now we need $1,158 in order to meet these 3 goals. Okay. It's not looking good because these are very big numbers compared to the available funds per month. And this is the situation that a lot of people are in. They have these goals, or really their dreams, but they're not realistic. And they're not realistic because the math just doesn't work, okay? So the reason that I've put this exercise together is because you can look at what's realistic here, what you should be focusing on by toying with these numbers and by looking at the available funds that you have per month. And you can figure all these things out. Now, you may say, oh, I don't want to go through the trial and error. I want to just determine what my contribution is going to be and then figure out what the number of periods are to accomplish it. So let's do that next. We're going to cut the NPER and we're going to insert the cut cells here. We're going to remove all of these values and we're going to remove all of these values. So now what we want to do is we want to say, how much am I willing to contribute to each of these goals? Okay, and then we can calculate what the number of periods are. So let's say for our retirement, we're willing to contribute, and remember, this is cash outflow, so we have to make the numbers negative. Or we can just keep them positive and then take care of it in the formula. So maybe we'll do that to keep it consistent. So let's say that we want to put 50 toward our retirement every month. Let's say that we want to put 150 toward our house down payment and 250 toward our emergency fund. Okay, so when we sum all of these up, just hit the sum button. Okay, that gives us 450, which is over our 400. So let's adjust this one to 200 and we get 400. Okay, so this is feasible. Now what we can do is we can calculate the number of periods. We type in equals n per, and we select our interest rate per month, our negative payment, our negative present value, our future value, and end of period. Okay, so that's the number of months that it's going to take if we save $50 per month. Now, I'm just going to drag this all the way down, and you can see that for the house down payment, if we allocate 150, it's going to take us 171 months to accomplish that. If we take 200 for our emergency fund, it's going to take us 99 months to accomplish that. So you see here the connection, and you see that all of these factors, these 5 factors, the amount, the rate, the present value or the current savings available, the contribution, the time horizon, they are mathematically connected, and basically, depending, the constraint here will be your available funds per month that you then have to allocate, and that's going to tell you if you save toward those specific goals, how long it's going to take. Now, last step, after we've got these amounts, we can update our cash budget. So the first cash budget here is to determine what the available funds are. Now we've determined what those goals are. If we copy this particular sheet, or rather, let's see here, and then paste the sheet, we can put cash budget 2 on the other side of goals. Now, the reason we want to do this is because down here in our expenses or our cash outflows, we now want to add those 3 categories. Okay, so there's a rule in personal finance: always pay yourself first. So we're going to put these at the top, and I'm just inserting these rows. We want to grab the goal here. So we have our retirement, and if we just drag this down, that's not, okay, there we go. Next, we can include the values. So that is our contribution amounts. Okay, so 50 per month. And remember, we have to go back and anchor these. And we want to anchor them because we're going to copy and paste these over. Okay, now when we come down here, we want to sum all of these, which are now going to include our goals. And we can copy this over. And now you can see that the change in cash is 0. Why? Because we've identified the cash, the excess cash that we have available. We've allocated it towards our goals, and we've updated our cash budget based on the goals that we have and the contributions to each of those, which are cash outflows. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it inspires you to go through the exercise and basically start thinking about your goals. If this was helpful, as is normally the case, like it, subscribe to the channel to get updates, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.